Just over 2 years ago, I embarked on my biggest challenge ever, and that challenge was completing an Ironman 70.3. Now, I've always grown up being sporty, super competitive, super ambitious, but I really wanted to put myself to the test, to push my body to the limits of what I believed I was capable of doing. And on that journey, I learned a ton about myself. I learned, one, how to run, how to cycle, how to swim, but more importantly, it taught me back to when I played competitive cricket, which was having a mental strength framework that really allows you to perform on autopilot is absolutely vital. You know, when I was in my earlier childhood, I played a lot of elite amateur sports and had some brilliant coaches who really drilled it into me that your mental strength is everything. And I was always very calm, always very collected. And I personally say to myself, normally, my temperament is my biggest asset. I'm very flat for good and for bad. And I'm very good at keeping my temperament very stable. And for those of you who really want a stable temperament, I've experienced a lot in my life. And I think I go through life thinking, well, what's the worst that could happen and what's the best that could happen? And how does my life compare to others? And when I have that framework, I believe that really helps me keep level headed because I'm never thinking this is awful or this is fantastic. I'm just kind of taking everything in my stride. But when this came down to an Ironman, what I found really, really important was perfecting the art of always thinking positive. And positive doesn't always mean, hey, I'm having a great day. I love it out here. I love doing these crazy training runs. I love sitting on an indoor trainer that you can see over here for 4 hours on a Sunday morning. No, it doesn't mean that you enjoy that all year round. But being positive and having a strong mindset means that you're never fazed by much. You can always digest what's going on and feel very comfortable day to day with whatever life's going to throw at you. And so I've always had this mindset that I thought was quite good for sports. And when I entered this challenge to complete my very first Ironman 70.3, I really had to dial in that framework again of how do I set myself up for success. And that's why this entire video is about how I reset my brain to succeed at this big challenge that I set myself. You know, completing an Ironman 70.3 is going to be similar to if you're embarking on your very first 10K or embarking on your, early small stage business idea. And you really are trying to achieve something so big, you've never done it before. And that leaves a massive chasm in the future. That chasm being what's going to happen. The having a massive time gap in front of you where you don't know if you're going to achieve and you don't know if your best is going to be good enough is a massive challenge. And the only way to overcome that is having a really strong mindset and setting your mental framework up so your brain is ready to succeed. So much of life is just about how you mentally frame things. And for me, even when I've had a big challenge in front of me, I think to myself, if someone else has completed a big challenge before and it's similar to mine, there's no reason that I can't go and do that as well. So I'm going to talk through a few of the things that I do to literally reprogram my brain so I am set up for success. And this is otherwise known as Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Now, depending on your background, whether it's sports or whether it's psychology, you're going to understand these frameworks, especially if you've competed at a national level in the States. If you've been through the college sport system, you're going to understand these frameworks very, very well. And maybe some of you who aren't in those environments have come across someone called David Goggins. And if you've come across David Goggins, you've more than likely gone down the rabbit hole online of Navy SEAL training, SAS training, and some of the toughest jobs in the world that require these individuals to really program their brain, because those types of jobs require a mental framework that is so above and beyond the everyday life that you have to program the brain to put up with things that the everyday person is not really set up to do. And a lot of that is relevant to sports. So I'm going to talk you through neuro-linguistic programming, what it meant to me, and hopefully you can get something out of that for your own life, complete a massive challenge because you'll have the mental framework to be able to do that. So what is neuro-linguistic programming? Without going too deep into the science, it is doing a set of actions that lead to a change in your mental framework and leading it to a change in your mental state of being that adapts, which ultimately changes your way of looking at the world, because so much of how you look at the world is down to your mindset. And so neuro-linguistic programming literally means reprogramming your neuroplasticity. Hopefully that's correct. In simple terms, you're reprogramming how you think. And it's actually more simple than you think. It's extremely hard to execute because it requires many, many days on end, repeating the same things, having the same cues in your daily life, and having the discipline to carry on those daily routines for a very long time, because the brain's a muscle and it's going to soak up information over time and you can train it to think. But essentially, that's what we're doing with NLP. You are programming your mind to think the way that you want it to think. And so in my case, with an Ironman 70.3, my big challenge was the ocean swim. Some Ironman races require you to swim in the ocean, and I'm terrified of the ocean. I'm not great with it. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm not in control. I'm not in control of the tides, the current, the waves. And that for me creates a lot of uncertainty where, for whatever reason, that leads terrifying thoughts that go through my mind. And so I really had to use NLP to overcome that. Now, I wasn't going to overcome my complete fear of the ocean, but what I could control is believing that I could conquer the ocean for 40 minutes, which is what I thought it would take me to do the 1.9 kilometer swim. And so I came up with a mantra. And this is the first thing you're going to want to do if you want to copy what I did. Come up with a mantra that you can emotionally tie to you, that you know you're going to be able to repeat every single day. And so for me, I repeated over and over again, I am strong, I am powerful, I will succeed. And the reason why I picked that mantra is for two reasons. One, I work in marketing and the power of language is so important. There is a rule in language and journalism called the power of three. Human mind doesn't think things that come in twos are important enough, and the mind can't really remember anything above three. So if you say to someone four things, they're going to remember three. And so it's a very simple rule to always come up with 3 points that you know you're going to remember, because your brain thinks it's important and then you're going to remember it as well. So I came up with this mantra of I am strong, I am powerful, I will succeed. That also corresponded with, on a swim, you have 3 legs. You swim out to the first buoy, you swim to the second buoy, and then you have the final leg where you're swimming to shore. And so I thought that was the perfect mix where I could use a 3-part mantra with a 3-part swim. So I could repeat each part of the mantra over and over again, depending on which part of the swim I was in. So going out to the first buoy, I would say, I am strong, I am strong, I am strong, over and over again. As soon as I would pass the first buoy and then swim right to the second buoy, I would then say, I am powerful, I am powerful. Because if you're strong and then you've completed something, you're powerful. You have a framework where you've succeeded with something, and now you know you can perform at a higher level, and that makes you powerful. And so this strength fed on to power. And then once I got to the final buoy, and then I'm turning right again to swim to shore, then I would say I am successful. And the reason why that would work, and the reason why I thought it would work, and it did in the end work, is because if you've completed the first 2 legs of something that you think is very difficult, you're then successful. If you've literally completed 2 things that you thought were impossible, and you're then on the 3rd leg, you've succeeded at something. And so this mantra was very specifically designed by myself to hone into things that were going to be true should I get to those stages of the swim. And so for the entire first leg of this swim, which in total it's a 1.9 kilometer swim, it was going to take me about 40 minutes to do. Essentially, I would say I am strong over and over again for approximately 12 minutes. Then I am powerful for about 12 minutes. And then I am successful for 12 minutes during that swim. But before that run up to the actual swim on actual race day, I repeated that saying every single day from May, when I had formally entered my Ironman and I had learned about NLP, through to the day before in early September, the race. Now, that may sound like a long time, but when you are fearsome of something and you have entered a race where you've got to conquer that fear, believe me, it was a fairly easy thing to get myself to do. And this leads on to the second thing that I did to reprogram my brain. Once I had that mantra, I lent into visualization. Whichever famous athlete or world-renowned athlete that you idolize, and I'm not sure if this is the same in business, even though I do a lot of work within business, it's definitely most prominent in athletics. When you paint a vision for yourself, your brain can almost think it's real. I'm sure we've all had dreams or nightmares where we wake up and we think it's real. There have been some phenomenal studies done in the past where someone who practices on a basketball court and visualizes the success, they're going to be more successful than the person who just practices. I.e., if you add visualization to your routine of practice, you're going to be more successful when you actually have to do the actions that you've been practicing in real time. And so for me, I knew that if I visualized successfully swimming through the entire Ironman course and I visualized myself getting out of the water, my brain would think I can already do it. And there's some brilliant articles online. If you just Google visualization in sports, you will go down this rabbit hole of understanding how the brain will believe whatever you tell it with your self-talk. And so by myself telling my brain every single day for 5 months that it is strong, it is powerful, and it is successful, and at the same time imagining that for the entire swim and imagining myself entering the water, imagining myself getting through the waves, imagining myself getting out of the water at the end of the swim and feeling energized, I would visualize all of that. My brain would literally think, I've done it. And so from May all the way through to September, before I'd even done the Ironman, my brain was being programmed to think that I had already successfully completed the swim. And believe me, it worked. When it came to race day, my inaugural Ironman 70.3, I had zero negative thoughts in my brain. I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of thoughts of what will happen, what will the day be like, what will the weather conditions be like, how many people will be racing, is it going to be cold, is it going to be rainy, where's my bike going to be racked, is my bike still going to be there in the morning, am I going to have a puncture, all of these thoughts. But it was always open questions where I would then be able to go, okay, I can succeed. I never had any negative thoughts. And I put this down to an incredible coach and 5 or 6 months of incredible mental training where I knew I had to program my brain. And so figure out a mantra, and then secondly, add visualization, and you're going to really program your brain for success. And finally, what really helped me program my brain for success from throughout this Ironman 70.3 training process and into the race was writing things down. The art of language is very interesting because when someone digests language and when you and I listen to things, if it's on a piece of paper, you have multiple different senses that are triggering when you're intaking that language. If you are reading a piece of paper, you have your eyesight taking in the language. You have your self-talk taking in the language. You have, if you say out the words that you're reading, then your ears are hearing the language as well. And that's really, really important to understand, because if you have many senses intaking the same information, you are strengthening your brain's ability to believe those words and read those words and intake that information. And so when you listen to audiobooks and it's just going through headphones into your brain and you can kind of do other tasks, you're not going to remember that, or it's very rare that you're going to remember that to the same degree than if you have a piece of paper in front of you, you are reading that information out loud, you're taking it in with your eyesight, your ears are hearing you say it, and your self-talk is repeating the words that you've read. As most of us have self-talk, there are a few people in this world who don't have that inner voice, which go Google that because it's absolutely fascinating. But most of us have the ability to repeat in our brains what we think we've read. And so the art of writing things down is an extra level to that. If you write down your goals and write down your mantras every single day, you then have muscle memory included in remembering the words that you need to remember for race day. Or if in this example you're not applying this to a race and it's your everyday life, whether you need to overcome a business challenge, a relationship challenge, or whatever it is, if you start writing things down, there's another angle to programming your mind. Writing will just be another lever by which your brain is going to remember the information that you're trying to have it soak up. And so by writing things down, you're building up muscle memory. And that muscle memory can be extremely powerful. Now, growing up doing a lot of sports, I learned by doing tens of hours a week of training. For example, with golf, my arms would just swing themselves. I have the same swing over and over again. And that's down to muscle memory from standing on a driving range, hitting thousands of balls every single month. Same with tennis. If you serve for 8 hours a day for 5 days in a row, your body's going to remember how to serve and the exact millimeters of your tennis serve. Everything from where your arms place when you throw the ball up to where the racket strikes the ball above your head. Your body's going to remember all of it because you repeat the same thing over and over again. And that's muscle memory. And the same's true that if you program your brain as it's a muscle and it remembers a lot of things, the art of repetition and the art of being dedicated to writing down your goals every single day is just a phenomenal way for your body to remember what you're trying to get it to remember. And remember, this is a challenge. Just because you want your brain to remember something does not mean it's going to want to remember something. So this is an incredibly difficult topic, but it's an incredibly difficult topic for a reason, because it's hard to do. But the results are incredible if you can tap into your inner mind, if you can tap into the ability to reprogram your mind, if you can tap into the ability to get yourself to focus on reprogramming your mind. This is one of the biggest skills in the world to learn, and it can unlock a huge amount of personal gains in your life. For the sole reason it can wipe out negativity in your mindset. There's a brilliant life coach called Tony Robbins who I was never a fan of because I always thought he was just a sales guy on the internet. And then when I was going through all my Ironman 70.3 training, I started going into his depths of knowledge online, and I took his words at face value, and I actually tried some of his methods. The ability to combine breath work with mantras, the ability to combine visualization with those mantras. All of this is neuro-linguistic programming, and it genuinely works. So to recap, when I got to the end of this Ironman training block, ultimately I was training for 6 to 10 months. I was terrified, I was excited, and for the whole day I ran off adrenaline. And I know I ran off adrenaline because it took me 4 days to recover. But I remember it being, I think it was a Wednesday or a Thursday, and I felt weird. And I realized, oh, I've just come off an adrenaline high. That's why these big, crazy challenges that you set yourself are so important, because you put yourself and your body in a position where it will learn it can cope with something new. And for me to come off an adrenaline high after 4 days post race, I knew I had accomplished something quite big. And now I have this feeling that I can achieve anything if I put my mind to it. And so is my mindset as strong as it was during that Ironman training? Probably not. But that's because I haven't repeated stuff every single day for 5-6 months. But believe me, if you do master the art of reprogramming your mindset and resetting your brain so that it can focus on the goals that you want to achieve, believe me, anything in your life is possible. So book that big, crazy challenge, create a mantra, visualize that and the success that you want to have, and write down those goals to build muscle memory. That for me was my secret to completing the biggest challenge of my life. And I seriously hope it helps you too. Now, these videos only go to more people if people like, comment, and subscribe. And that's because if you've enjoyed this, and if you're at the end, hopefully that's true. If you drop a like, then YouTube thinks it knows who else is going to like this video. So every like helps. About 90% of people do not subscribe to a channel that they watch religiously. So give me a follow if you think I'm adding value. I'm going to be here every single day for the foreseeable future, just sharing my experiences. And so if this has been helpful, DM me on Instagram if I can help. And yeah, use this as the cue to book that big crazy challenge, because you now have the mental framework to succeed.